I love that question. And honestly, it's interesting because when I was working in corporate America for so long, I never knew when I would get to this point. But now that I'm sitting in this seat and I look back at all the little things I learned that I was able to take with me to be a successful entrepreneur, I would say the one thing I learned was in one of my sales jobs. And my manager used to say, is that revenue generating activity? Because if not, it should be done after hours. So probably the biggest thing is you'll see me, I don't do proposals or any of that stuff, during the day. The only thing I do during working hours is process payroll if I haven't done it the night before. But I think the most essential thing is delegating your own time and being very strict with your time management as an entrepreneur, and making sure that during, normal business hours or whatever, that you're like dictating what you're doing at the proper time, so that you're not wasting time when you could be out networking or at a networking event or meeting with clients, that you're not, for me anyway, in my industry, that's the way it works out really well for me. So I do all that non-revenue generating stuff after hours or first thing in the morning before I leave.
Hello and welcome to the Smart Business Owner Podcast with your host, Schubert. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Smart Business Owner Podcast. This is your host, Schubert. And today's guest is Samantha Dover. Samantha owns a company by the name of Empowered Building LLC locally here in Palm Beach County. Samantha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, Samantha, one thing I like to do whenever I have somebody like you on the show is to start at the beginning. If you can tell us a little bit about your background and how did you get started into construction? Was it something that you always thinking about, swinging hammers and remodeling homes? So, give us a little bit the backstory and little details you think it's important.
How I got here, yes. So I'm a native Floridian. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and moved up to Palm Beach County right before Hurricane Andrew, and kind of during we were still in the process of moving. Went to high school here and then went to college in Orlando at University of Central Florida, where I actually met my husband, and we started dating, and then we both moved back here to Palm Beach Gardens. We just both love it here. Our families are here. And his whole family, their background is in construction. So I grew up with a dad that's very, he's a handyman. He's very hands-on. He fixes everything himself. So I'm a very hands-on person. And then, meeting my husband, and when we got married, every house we've ever lived in, we've renovated from top to bottom. My husband got his degree in business, but then continued in the construction industry afterwards, got his contractor's license. And we've always kind of had a business that we've had on the side. And he's also worked for corporate America as a project manager and superintendent. So lots of experience in the construction industry. I have a whole big corporate background, but like I said, since he and I have always been renovating our own houses and everything, it's always been our dream to kind of do our own thing. And so we were lucky enough to find ourselves in a position recently where I could leave corporate America and kind of dive into this full time. And it's been awesome. It's been super fun.
That's awesome. Usually this is construction is somewhat a male-dominated field. So finding a female CEO, female owner, it's always very, very interesting. Now,
it is.
Samantha, what was the light bulb moment for you when you knew that, hey, you know what? I want to take the plunge and start my own construction company?
To be totally honest, I was just burned out on corporate America, and we had been planning for it for a while. And the stars aligned, and we just knew it was the right time. There were some good projects that were on the table. And so the timing was just perfect. It was just a matter of finding the right moment to do it and take the leap. It was terrifying, but it was absolutely the best decision I ever made. So.
Did you ever have any moment of doubt when you say, hey, because entrepreneurship is, it's not an easy route. It's tough. So did you have any doubts at any moment? Hey, do I really want to do this on my own?
No, to be honest, not really, because I was so ready to do it. And you just kind of get to a point where, I was very unhappy where I was. So when the opportunity arose, I was so certain and I was so committed to being successful at it that nothing was going to stop me. That's kind of my personality. So, yes, it was scary. And there were days that I was nervous and I wanted to make sure that, I was doing things the right way and that I was going to be able to provide enough income for our family. We've always been a dual income household. But honestly, I'm just so blessed because every day I get to wake up and I say my worst day doing this is better than my best day with what I was doing before. So no, I've never had a moment of doubt. I just keep going, and every day I just do what I'm loving, which is crazy. And I just am so blessed. So
It's awesome. Now, for
yeah.
our listeners who might be thinking about remodeling, what's the typical timeline for transforming a house from drab to fab?
Well, the biggest thing really, like when it comes to when it comes to wanting to do something to your house, it really depends on how big of a project you want to do. We do a lot of, we're all residential. We don't do any commercial work. But a lot of times we'll go and meet with a potential client, and they'll say, I want to work on my kitchen or I want to work on my bathroom. And then it kind of snowballs into other things. We try to work within their budget and their time frame. So if somebody says, we're going to be out of town and I want to do X, Y, or Z, can we get it done? That's really it. For a full remodel, if you're doing a bathroom and a couple of kitchens, with permitting and everything, it can take a couple of months. It really just depends on the complexity of the project. But really what I try to do is very detail oriented. So I try to really draw out a solid scope of work and give the homeowners a good time frame. So I'll typically tell them, it's going to be between 12 and 14 weeks or whatever, 6 and 8 weeks. And we really
Right.
do our absolute best to stick within that. But it's really specific to what they want to do. A bathroom shouldn't take very long, but a kitchen, plumbing, electrical, all of that takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah,
one thing I've heard is sometimes it's better to give them a longer period of time than to give them a shorter period of time and falling behind schedule. Now,
absolutely.
some
Absolutely.
sometimes we've seen people try to decide whether or not it is worth remodeling a home. For example, they've been living in the home for 5 years, and
Mm-hmm.
the kitchen has not been renovated or updated, or the bathrooms. Sometimes they
Mm-hmm.
try to weigh the pros and cons to see, okay, is it worth it? What's your take on that?
So my personal take on that is it's always worth it if it's your home. There's two ways to look at it. Is it your personal home or is it like an investment property? I've worked with, some clients in the past that were remodeling places to make them a short-term rental, and STRs, they call them. That's a different point of view than if it's your personal home. But if it's your personal home and you're going to live there, you got to make it a space that you're going to love. That's really what it's all about. And, figuring out what budget you're comfortable with and what you can afford to do, you can update a space in any budget and make it more comfortable for you. There's nothing worse than living in a house that you're not in love with. You go buy a house that somebody else's, it's their style, it's their taste. It's always
Right.
worth it. Yeah.
So it's always good, especially to make that home, your taste,
Yes,
the way you want it.
absolutely. Absolutely. You got to make it yours. You got to
Now,
love where you live. That's what I always tell everybody. You want to love where you live.
that's awesome. Now let's talk about bathrooms. They can be a nightmare. So, what's your secret sauce when it comes to renovating bathrooms to make them, like the dirtiest, looking bathrooms to a spa like projects?
A spa-like retreat. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So number one with a bathroom, I would say don't cut corners, right? You pull permits anyway, 9 times out of 10, when you open up the walls, you're going to find old plumbing and old fixtures and things like that. So whenever we renovate a bathroom, we want to make sure that we also update things that you don't see, like the shower valve, for example, because that can always be a nightmare down the road. But then when it comes down to the cosmetics and how you want the bathroom to feel, it is like you said, do you want a spa like retreat? Are we going for like a
Right.
masculine man cave look? There's so much you can do with a bathroom. You can have fun with it. You can keep it nice and, kind of simple. I mean, that's probably one of my favorite things to do, is to get to know our clients and kind of understand what their vibe is and what style they're going for.
Right.
And then we just kind of go to town. Bathrooms can be a lot of fun. And then if it's like a kid's bathroom, we want it to be functional, or so, there's a lot of
And,
cool stuff
and
you
I'm
can do.
guessing the making the home yours, I think it start with the bathroom.
Absolutely. That's what we did. We started with our master bathroom, and
Yeah.
it's my favorite room in the house. It's a great retreat. So,
Yeah. What
mhm.
about the kitchen?
So
The
kitchen,
kitchen is it's like the heart. That's where the family spend the most amount of time. where
Yes.
you guys share a meal, all that good stuff. What are some of the pro tips you can give our listeners that thinking about, okay, well, it's time to redo our kitchen.
Hmm.
However, we don't want to break the bank. So
Right.
give us some good tips on that.
So kitchen trending right now, a lot of, it's all about, like you said, that's kind of where everybody wants to hang out and spend time. So it's maximizing the space and the layout that you have. A lot of people want to hang out in the kitchen. Do you have a nice island where you can, put out appetizers and everybody has room to stand around and enjoy time together, and then storage space and functionality and things like that. So there's little things that we like to do that kind of make the kitchen unique to your own, but very functional and just a beautiful space. When it comes to kitchens, again, when I always say don't cut corners. That if it comes to budgeting, there's always ways that you can save money. But as far as kitchens go, like with cabinets and stuff, there's lots that you can choose from that will stay within your budget and not break the bank. So that's kind of nice.
So is it good to have at least a good idea as far as a range as opposed to an exact number? For example, you could say, okay, well, we're gonna spend maybe $15,000 to $20,000 on a kitchen, and try to stay within that range.
It's really difficult to do that only because you can get cabinets that are low budget, but you can also, there are some extravagant things you can add to a kitchen. Where a lot of money is spent in kitchen updating is appliances. If people are getting new appliances and they want to update that, there's obviously a large cost associated with that. So if I'm talking to somebody about updating their kitchen, sometimes they'll ask me, should I keep my appliances or update? We'll talk about how old they are. But a lot of the chunk of the budget will go there. I would say for a really amazing kitchen update, I would plan on spending closer to like 50,000, including appliances, depending on the size and the space, the countertop material, the cabinetry, all of those things. You could definitely redo a kitchen for less than that. But I would say if you're really going to kind of go with bells and whistles, I would probably wrap my head more around like a 40 to 50,000.
And usually too, the once the kitchen's renovated or the house is fully updated, the value
Mm-hmm.
of the home goes up as well. So it's not like
Absolutely.
you lose the money; you get the money
Nope.
back. Now, during COVID, we had some problem with supply chain. Is this
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to lumber, things like that? Have these things been resolved? Is it all clear? People can renovate and get material very easily these days?
We don't have issues with supply chain. The cost of everything has gone up tremendously, which is probably why my kitchen number is higher than what you said. Unfortunately, the cost of, plywood, drywall, all of those things has gone up considerably. So the cost for those projects is a little bit more. Inflation has kind of hit every industry, but at least the supply chain isn't as bad as it was before.
Right.
So that's good. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, we've all seen those TV shows, where they're showing you from start to finish and all sparkle. Now, you are the actual TV show, but in reality, you're doing things in real life, what we're showing on those, home TV shows. How does
Yeah.
those TV shows stack up with what you're doing on a daily basis?
Well, I can say, obviously a lot of TV shows, are kind of scripted or whatever, but the reality is when you're digging into a house, you are typically going to find some kind of issue behind the walls. So I find, with every episode, there's always like an issue that they have to, overcome, or something that wasn't within the budget. That actually is pretty standard in real life. Sometimes it may not be a problem or a broken pipe or whatever, but someone may change their mind. Sometimes
Right.
we'll take down walls, and especially in condos, we do a lot of work in condominiums, and we'll take down a wall and there will be a stack that says on the plans it was in one place, but in actuality it's somewhere else. Like, those things actually do happen. And you have to expect that with any renovation, that something's going to come up or it's not going to fit properly or whatever. But that's just kind of part of the process, and we figure it out all the time, and it always works out in the end. So,
Do you think about maybe starting your own TV shows of home remodeling?
oh, listen, some days I wish someone was following me around with a camera, because some of the stuff that we see, especially in renovations, like previous DIY nightmares, I would love to document it and say, I'm really happy your house didn't burn down because of the way someone wired something or whatever. Listen, it would be a lot of fun. It would be a lot of fun.
Any story you can share with us?
I can share a couple. So recently we were doing a renovation, and again, it started small and then it was, oh, and can you do this? And can you do that? We ended up remodeling an entire townhouse, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, kitchen, both bathrooms except for the master. So a bathroom and a half, whatever. We did all the flooring, all of the trim, the kitchen, everything. Well, in discovering when we were pulling up the flooring and getting ready to put down the new flooring, there was a spot that looked a little moldy in the back of a closet. Turned out that was the old laundry closet. And the previous owners had moved the washer and dryer into the garage so that they could use that closet for storage space. And they actually just turned all the fixtures around inside of the wall. It wasn't done properly, so it had been leaking slowly for years. They had like a major issue with a leak in the wall, and the electrical wasn't done properly. So the electrical wires weren't run properly in the wall. They were completely exposed. And the owner of the house is a firefighter. So he was like, oh my gosh, please fix it now. So needless to say, we opened up the wall and took care of it. But those are just the things, they didn't know when they bought the house that the previous owner had done this. They just saw that the washer and dryer was in the garage and it was plugged in and it was fine. So how would they know? It was inside of the walls. So yeah, their exhaust fan in the bathroom was venting to nowhere. So all that hot, and the dryer vent was just going into a wall. It didn't exit anywhere on the house. So all that hot air was just going into the attic space. So little things like that.
Yeah, I bet that firefighter is really happy now that you guys came in and took care of the problem.
Yeah, that was one. And then we had another one, probably one of my top three was in a kitchen. Again, it's always a previous owner and people buy the house and you can't see what's behind the walls. We redid their entire kitchen and discovered that the previous owner had run interior extension cords, the ones that have like the 3 plugs on one end underneath the cabinets, but hardwired it into a light switch that had existed for a previous light in the ceiling. He just wired it all together and ran the cord underneath the cabinets and plugged in all of the lights.
Wow. Extension cords not supposed to be used inside of a wall.
They're definitely not supposed to be hardwired either. So anyway, those are just some of the fun ones that I've been like, wow, that was pretty,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you're 100% right. You need to make the house your house.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to interior design, how do you incorporate the latest trend while keeping things functional and timeless?
So a lot of times, some projects that I work with interior designers or interior decorators. It really kind of depends. But some of the ones where homeowners are a part of it, it sounds silly, but we use Pinterest a lot. There's a lot of inspiration on there, putting together colors and everything and kind of seeing the different trends that are out there. But a lot of times, if you're like me, yes, we do the construction part of it, but I'm not a designer. And sometimes I have a hard time kind of putting things together. So Pinterest is a really good resource for people. I tell clients all the time, start a Pinterest board, get an idea of what you really love, and then we'll pull it together. So that's kind of that's our stepping stone.
Gotcha. What about DIY, do it yourself? A lot of people, could be watching that show or listening, and they think, hey, I can probably do these things myself. So what are some advice you can give, to people as far as when they can do it themselves and when to, hey, you know what, let's call Samantha or let's call Empowered Building because this is above our head?
So really, it's kind of a twofold answer. So it's how good are you at what you want to do, right? What's the project? Are we painting a bedroom? Are we installing baseboard and door casing? Can you do it? Do you have the tools? Do you have the time? Right? Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I could save money by doing it myself. Absolutely. I'm a huge DIYer. That's how I got myself here. But then sometimes you're like, okay, well, I don't have the right tools. So am I actually going to be able to do it to a point where it looks good enough where they're going to be happy in the long run? Right. So that's little stuff like that. Cosmetic things, like I said, painting or things like that. Anytime you're getting into like tile is really difficult to install properly. There's a lot of YouTube videos and you can watch a lot of things about it. But again, if you do it, are you going to be able to do it to a way where you know that it's waterproofed properly and you're not going to have a leak later? And are you going to like the way it looks? Because sometimes, you might save a little bit, but it might not look good and you're going to end up redoing it in the end anyway. Anytime you're doing electrical, plumbing, AC stuff, always, always, always hire a licensed professional. Do not ever DIY that stuff on your own.
And also the permitting. Sometimes a lot of those projects, they're not going to have a permit. And since they don't have a permit, something could be not installed properly. And when it's time to replace it, it's a problem because the first guy, the guy that was there before caught a lot of corners, and next thing you know, you end up with a lot of problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that it does happen. And listen, changing a light fixture, things like that, people are going to do that on their own. I'm talking about like if you're redoing your bathroom or things like that, I would
Right.
definitely say, like you said, long term. Nobody wants to have a nightmare leak down the road. It can be very, very, very inconvenient and
Yeah.
expensive. So
100%. Now, let me ask you this. A lot of time people can be a little bit skeptical about contractors or, home renovate, renovators. What advice would you give to people if they are hiring a contractor or, a home remodeling company like yours?
yeah.
What are some of the recommendations or advice would you give him how to spot a good contractor and how to spot a bad one?
Ask for references every single time. Ask to speak to a previous client that they've worked with. Ask to see if they have Google reviews or things like that. We're a relatively new company, so I'm trying to start asking for reviews and build a website and everything, because it's like having a portfolio. It's like asking an artist to paint a mural in your house, but you've never seen their work.
Right.
So it's great if somebody can have a point of reference and they can see photos and things of what you've done. But it's also really great if you can speak to a previous customer that they've had and
Right.
talk through their experiences. It helps me tremendously when I can say, please call this previous homeowner that I've worked with, and they can talk them through what their experience was working with us. I think that's huge. And it speaks volumes. If they're not able to produce anybody that you can talk to, then that should be a red flag.
Right.
you
What
know,
about do you recommend them to get multiple proposal before pulling the trigger, or if you're comfortable with that one contractor, is it good to just go ahead and then start the project?
as a homeowner, I would typically get more than one proposal, but sometimes also, I mean, and I've had this experience too, if you find somebody that you feel like you have a good connection with and the numbers work and it fits within the budget and you're happy with that, I think it's really important to, when you're renovating your house, it's very important to work with somebody that you trust. They're going to be in your
Right.
house. Like most of the time, my clients give me their house key. So yes, if you want to get a couple proposals just to make sure you're in the right ballpark, there's never anything wrong with doing that. But I think it's really important that you build a good relationship with the contractor as well. So that
So
goes a long way.
the trust factor needs to be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think so, coming from where I come from and with my background, my number one thing with homeowners is just honesty and transparency. Like there's things are going to come up, especially with bigger projects. Little things are, little projects are not such a big deal. But I think it's so important that if something comes up, we immediately contact the homeowner. Here's the situation. I send pictures, videos. We work with quite a few clients that are out of state at the time that we're doing the project. Here's what we need to do. Are you okay with it? Just that open line of communication goes a really, really long way.
That's
So,
good. That's good.
yeah.
Very good. Now, what would you say is the biggest curveball being in home remodeling that you have faced, and how did you knock it out the park?
I mean, for us and so I told you that I'm from here. My husband's from here. There's a
Right.
lot of companies that have been around in this area for a really long time. So, depending on, especially with condos, there are contractors that kind of get their name known in the condo building. And so if we're working with somebody, they're like, well, this company's been doing condos in here for a while. So that's probably the hardest challenge that we have, is kind of breaking through and getting opportunities in new places. But luckily for us, we know so many people in the area that, we're quite busy and very happy about it. So
That's good. Being busy is a
yeah,
good thing.
yeah.
Now, for anyone listening, thinking about starting a career in construction or starting their own remodeling company, just like you did, what's one good piece of advice do you have for them?
Network, 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 right? Like it's really important in this industry to have solid employees that's probably the biggest challenge in construction, right? There's a lot of people out there that are pretty good at a lot of things, but it's also finding the people that are very good at a few things. So for me, I spend a lot of time networking because for specific trades, electricians and so forth, we do outsource those trades, and making sure that you have really good partnerships, because those vendors that you work with it's still my name, it's still my company that the client sees. So it's really important that my partnerships are strong, and that if something comes up or we need somebody there, they show up when they say they're going to. That's probably the most essential part of the success of my company right now, is having really good partner vendors.
That's good. Now,
Yeah.
when it comes to Empower Building, your company, what sets you
Mm-hmm.
guys apart? What would you say, some of the things that you've seen in the industry that you guys want to make sure that, that represents your brand, and any great story you can share with us, that would be great.
The biggest thing for me, I think what sets us apart, honestly, and you kind of alluded to it earlier, is a lot of people aren't used to seeing a female in the construction industry. They're not used to
Right.
seeing, a female walk onto the job site and go through the whole process. I'm very lucky. I work with my husband and my father-in-law, and they have that tribal knowledge of construction and the business background and everything. For
Right.
me, I think what sets us apart is the honesty, the communication. My clients say it time and time again is, thank you for communicating with us. I probably communicate more with them than any other handyman, and no offense to men, but it's just I'm very organized. I communicate, and we're very efficient with everything. And I think that's what my clients say when we're done. They're like, you made this so much easier for us. And I'm like, yes, that's my goal. I just love making people happy. And in the end, this morning, I was standing with a gentleman and we just redid their whole garage. We converted it into a beautiful playroom, bathroom, mudroom space. And he's like, wow, I can't believe we're done. Like, this is it. He wasn't like, oh, thank goodness we're done.
Right.
That is what gives me all the joy and why I look forward to getting up every day.
Now,
So,
for folks listening and thinking about it, hey, you know what? Let's call Samantha and see and get a proposal. Can you give us an idea what it's like to work with you from start to finish with your company or your team?
sure. Yeah. So when we first, are introduced to somebody, all of our business is referral based. So we'll go out, introduce ourselves, and just sit down and talk with them. What is it that you're looking to do? Look around, take lots of pictures and measurements and things like that. And I just say, this is just a starting point, and I draw up what we call a scope of work, right? This is what I heard you say you want to do. And I outline everything for the client, and then I send it to them and say, is there anything I'm missing, anything additional that you want to add or take away or whatever? And then we drill into the numbers. Sometimes, like I said, I work with electricians and plumbers. So they'll give me their part of the scope of work. And then also the client can decide, do they want to source their own materials and handle shipping and delivery and all of that, or do they want me to do it? So we're very customizable as far as the level of service and support that they want to receive and how involved they want to be in the project. So that's kind of how we work through the beginning. And then, we go into permitting if needed and go through that whole process. And once we start, that's it. I kind of take over from there. And like I said, I communicate with them on a regular basis and give them updates on everything and, just kind of walk them through the process. So.
Very good, very good. Now
Yeah.
dive a little bit when it comes to mindset for entrepreneurs. What would you say the one piece of advice you received from a mentor that have helped shape you to who you are today?
I love that question. And honestly, it's interesting because when I was working in corporate America for so long, I never knew when I would get to this point. But now that I'm sitting in this seat and I look back at all the little things I learned that I was able to take with me to be a successful entrepreneur, I would say the one thing I learned was in one of my sales jobs. And my manager used to say, is that revenue generating activity? Because if not, it should be done after hours. So probably the biggest thing is you'll see me, I don't do proposals or any of that stuff, during the day. The only thing I do during working hours is process payroll if I haven't done it the night before. But I think the most essential thing is delegating your own time and being very strict with your time management as an entrepreneur, and making sure that during, normal business hours or whatever, that you're like dictating what you're doing at the proper time so that you're not wasting time when you could be out networking or at a networking event or meeting with clients, that you're not, for me anyway, in my industry, that's the way it works out really well for me. So I do all that non-revenue generating stuff after hours or first thing in the morning before I leave.
As a business owner, do you find it hard to delegate sometimes? Because that's one of the biggest hindrance for business owners or entrepreneurs. They think that they are the only one that can do it. Therefore, it's hard for them to delegate. Do you find
Yes,
have you found that in your practice or in your business that it's
it's a
hard to do?
challenge. It's a challenge. It is definitely a challenge letting go and delegating and kind of outsourcing some things. So that's something I'm still trying to work on. But it's difficult to find the fine line. Like, it's the same concept of like, do I do it myself or do I hire a professional? It's the same thing, that DIY concept. When you're
Right.
running a business, you have to get to a point where you have to start offloading some of it so that you can continue to build your business and not, spend all your time doing things that aren't going to help you build your business. So yeah, that's a challenge for me. I'm still working on it.
Gotcha. Yeah. let's talk about success. What does success means to you?
Oh my gosh. Success to me is happiness. Happiness. Feeling pride in what you do on a daily basis and feeling good about it and being able to have work-life balance. My husband and I have 3 kids. They are growing up very fast right before our eyes. So
I
success to me
bet.
is being able to work hard during the day and then spend quality time with our kids on the off hours and weekends and holidays.
How do you keep going every day? I mean, anything that you use on a daily basis as far as motivation that you keep feeding on to, get out there and go get after it?
I mean, loving what you do is a huge part of it, but my kids are my motivation and my husband. I mean, we are a very tight family unit. Everything that I do is for them. So they're my motivation. Honestly, that's it. I just do it because I love them and I want them to have a good life. And I also think it's super important. It's interesting for my kids to see that you can do something that you love and be successful at it. So I'm also trying to just lead by example for them and show them like you can be a mom and you can be a business owner and be a room mom at school. This morning I
Right.
volunteered for my son's play. Like I want to be that example for them. So it just motivates me to be my best self every day. Like I'm just very lucky that way. So
It's
it's all
awesome.
working out. It's all working out.
That's awesome.
Most days,
Now,
some days it's a bit of a chaotic show, but nobody's perfect.
I bet. Yeah, we're all humans. That's what makes us human, right?
That's it. That's it. And it's okay to
If
make mistakes and to fall down and all of that. You just have to figure out what you can do differently and carry on,
Yeah. Now,
So.
if you could go back, at the beginning of your career, I mean, your company hasn't been in business for that long, but your career in general as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, if you
Mhm.
could go back, what would be, if anything, that you would change?
I don't know. I really don't know if there's anything I would change, Schubert. I don't think I would. Maybe do it sooner. Just like people say when they renovate their houses, I wish I had done this sooner. I kind of wish I
Right.
had done it sooner. I really do. That would probably be the one thing I would change. But, I feel like it just had to be so apparent that I needed to make the change that I had no hesitation. That's kind of my personality. So, but looking back, I know if I had done it sooner, I still probably would have carried the same. But anyway, that would probably be it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything, any big projects for your company coming up in 2025? How do you feel about 2025 for your business?
I'm very excited for 2025. We have some good projects on the table right now that we're doing proposals for. I can't seem to get away from condo work, so I'm trying to embrace it because a lot of contractors, it's a lot. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, a lot of things, stipulations and stuff, especially depending on the municipality.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out how to make that work for us because I really enjoy working in condos. I don't mind it at all, and so that's what we've kind of got coming up. So.
What part of the state do you guys cover? Do you guys mostly South Florida? Can you give us a little scope as far as how far do you guys go?
Northern Palm Beach County is kind of where we're at right now. To be perfectly honest with you, there's so much work. I mean, we live in an area where there's a lot of new construction, but there's a lot of houses in this area that are older that need to be updated. So, quite honestly, just by word of mouth and referrals, we really don't go too terribly far south. I mean, I think the furthest south that I've gone is Palm Beach Island and then north up to like Jupiter, Florida. So I try not to go too far south just because when it comes down to it, the efficiency of time spent on the road when you're in construction,
Right.
is a lot. And some of, the specialty trades that I work with, they won't travel down south, so that becomes a little bit of an issue. So
Yeah, I mean,
Northern Palm Beach County.
there's probably no need to go far south because we have so many people moving in,
Hmm.
so many homes
Right.
being built, and so there was already a bunch of homes in Palm Beach County, so
Right. Yeah.
that
So
makes
lucky for
sense.
us, we haven't had to travel very far, but I just feel like there would be a lot of time wasted on the road. And there's so much work to be done in this area that we're very lucky to kind of be able to stay in this spot. So,
Very good, very good. Now, let's talk about networking. You alluded, I mean, you talked about that earlier.
yeah.
I obviously met you at PRE, Professional Referral Exchange. Can
Yep.
you tell us, how's been the experience for you at PRE, and has it been a successful one?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's super important to network. And I mean, that's my background is in sales anyway. And whether I have somebody in my networking group, I met, somebody there immediately that I still continue to partner with. He's been so busy that he actually left the networking group because he became so successful from it. But I think it's also great to be surrounded once a week by other entrepreneurs that feel the same way you do. It's very motivational. And I always feel like every Tuesday when I leave there and I know in the morning, I feel motivated and focused. And so even that probably is the best thing for me. And then it has also brought other opportunities to meet people and kind of grow my business. So I love it. I think it's great.
Has it paid for itself since you've been in it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tenfold.
Because as a business owner, that's one of the things that business owner always want to know, what's the ROI, return on investment. Is it going to pay off for itself? So yours has paid off, tenfold. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Anything that you think it's important or we left out that you wanna talk about?
I don't think so. We covered a lot today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me about my company. And it's been a great year. I'm spending a lot of time reflecting right now on it. And like you said, like kind of looking forward to 2025. And I don't know. I got all the feelings right now. It's good stuff. I'm very happy. So thank you.
I even though I'm not I don't have a background in construction, but I feel like now I do because you share some very important information with us, and I think that it was an awesome conversation. So thank you for doing that, and folks, I hope you guys learned a ton from Samantha. Thank you so much for tuning in, and keep hustling, stay curious. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody. You've been listening to the Smart Business Owner Podcast. See you in the next episode.